Exhale, slowly bring that leg down while you're lifting your torso up. It's like a single-legged deadlift. It's like a big move. Give yourself a bit of a shake, because that's not an easy one. And it's not so easy, which we're going to do on the other side. So, ground through the other leg, your right leg this time. Left leg goes back. You start off up on the toes, arms come out to the side. Again, this might be as far as you want to go, because this is an oddly balanced position that we as humans in the modern world don't spend much time in. If you feel confident, let the torso come down and the back leg come up. If you're at home, you've got the advantage of using radiators, walls, chairs, windows, your pet dog as a kind of a way of holding you up. And then to finish off this, if you're feeling really strong, breath in, back leg goes down, simultaneously lifting the front leg, coming back onto two legs. Really good exercise, because that works the hamstrings as you're kind of coming up from that. As you're coming up at that point, it's all in the hamstrings pulling you back up. So it's a really strong move. Give your hips a bit of a shake. It's different doing it outdoors, isn't it? Because the wind, floor, uneven surfaces, dogs. Let's do some more standing poses for this one. Come into a warrior one this time, standing at the front of that. Left leg goes back. Right knee bends. Hands come onto the hips here. Use the hands to lift the rib cage up. So you're making the gap between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your hips as long as possible. Gently pull the belly in at this point as well. And then the arms up if you feel like, yeah, I want to take the arms up. Keep pressing through this left leg, especially the left heel. Lift and spread the toes on the right. Wing arms, bring those in. Tuck them into the rib cage here. Keep them squeezed in. Imagine you've got a paperback book and bring your elbow. Inhale, hands come together. Exhale, hands move away from one another. Keep them pressed in. Inhale, bring the hands together. Exhale, let the hands move away from one another. Do this a few more times. And then let the arms come down by your side. Let the arms become floppy. Kite hawk arms. I'm going to turn to the front here so everybody can see what I'm doing in kite hawk arms. Arms come out to the side. Then take a big breath in. And as you take that breath in, drop the shoulder blades down the back. Lift your chest up towards the sky. Palms turn up towards the universe. Exhale, draw your shoulder blades up. Palms rotate downwards and away from you. Chest comes down, head comes down. Inhale, draw the shoulder blades down. Palms come up, opening your chest up towards the sky. Exhale, reversing that move. What's important with this move, it's not just your hands moving, everything from the shoulder blade all the way to your fingertips is moving. So that's the key with this one. Then let your arms come down. Bring your hands to the floor, let the back knee come down. Bring it down slowly. Remember, this is yoga, not wrestling. We don't crash it down. Easy twisting lunge. Left hand goes down on the floor. Right hand either goes up to the sky or on your hip, or you can bring it down onto this knee that you're looking at. Whichever one feels best in your shoulders and gets you into the nicest going twist. If you've got the arm down on the floor and you feel super strong today, feel for pushing that arm into the ground. So it's almost like you're pushing the earth away from yourself. If you've got an arm up in the sky, feel for reaching for something. Imagine that there is something that you're trying to get and it's like a hair's breadth away from you being able to grab hold of it. Maine Coon cat stretch. This one becomes a lot of fun. Bring both hands down onto the floor. Inside of this leg that's in the front. Here's what I want you to notice here. If you feel like you're going out on the outside of this leg that's in the front here, you want to take the leg a little bit wider. So hands down on the floor, feel for lowering your chest down towards the floor as much as possible, as much as feels comfortable. You might feel like, yeah, I can bring my elbows down on the floor. Cool. It's a little bit more challenging doing that outside because there's sand everywhere. If you want to up level this one a little bit more, you can curl the toes on the back foot under, lift that back knee up. That puts a little bit more stress in the upper body, gets you to work a little bit harder. You can then bring the elbows down if that feels good. People at home, you might feel like, oh, put your elbows on blocks or on a bolster as well, as sort of a halfway point between being up on your hands and down on your elbows. Outside, you probably don't want to bring a bolster out here. Pigeon now with the right leg forward. Now, if you kind of like don't have a pigeon that works for you, the easiest way to get into pigeon, back into all fours, shoot that right leg forward so the knee is somewhere between the two hands. Left leg goes behind. You can drop that right hip down if that feels good as well. That's fine. Whatever feels good. If you've been doing yoga for a while and you feel like you want to deepen this pose a little bit, a trick is to make your shin at the front. Try and bring that shin so it is parallel with the front of your mat, or as much as possible. Again, avoiding pain, avoiding discomfort, avoiding anything that just doesn't feel good. From here, we're going to go into a choose your own adventure. 2 different poses that you can choose from. Child's pose, or if you're outside and you feel like child's pose is going to mean that you're going to ingest too much sand, you can come into an easy pose for a moment. Whichever pose you're in, feel for that connection with your breath, connection with yourself. Maybe focusing on that spot where you drew your own personal sensory awareness into. Work on lengthening the inhale and lengthening the exhale. Whichever pose you're in, let's work our way back to a standing. I don't feel like going into down dog because every time I've done this so far, sand blows in my face. That's not very fun. All those poses on the other side. If I forget one, feel free to shout out at me. Right leg goes back, warrior one this time. Get your balance. Again, if there's any tufts underneath your mat, stamp them down. Hands on the hips, lift the chest up. This is a really important move. This idea of bringing space between the bottom of the ribcage and the top of the hips. Bend that front knee and then activate the abs ever so slightly. So you're pulling the lower belly up and pulling the front of the ribcage down a little bit. Once you really cool. Like elbows come in. Inhale, hands come together. Exhale, hands move away. Do that a few more times on that inhale. Focus for keeping those elbows nice and tucked in. Exhale, roll the elbows. Roll the hands out, keeping the elbows tucked in. Kite hook arms come out to the side. Inhale, shoulder blades down, palms come up, chest comes up. Roll the arms, roll away, head comes down. Rounds of this, getting as much movement through the rib cage as feels awesome. This is kind of like doing a cat-cow, but it's got the shoulders in there and the arms driving that movement as well. Lunge, both hands come down, back knee comes down slow, let's come up. Lunge, right hand comes down, left hand either right up to the sky, on the hip or on the knee, whichever one again feels like for you. If you've got the hand on the floor and you're feeling really strong, push that arm into the ground, feel like you're pushing the planet away, and reach through the top arm. Maine Coon cat stretch, both hands come down on the floor. Remember, a lot of different options for this. The first thing to look is the foot, and that take your foot a little bit wider. So, first version of this, hands on the floor, drop your chest down towards the mat. You're trying to shorten this distance here. If you feel like, yeah, this feels like I can go a little bit further and I want to kind of like stretching it, toes under, knee up. You might also be able to bring the elbows down, and again, if you're at home, you can use a bolster or something as like an intermediate between hands down and elbows down outside. That's not really an option. Pick a place where you feel like you can stay there for a few breaths and it doesn't feel awful. Yoga should never feel awful. Sometimes it feels stretchy, sometimes it feels a little bit like, ooh, but it shouldn't feel awful. From here, we went into a pigeon. You might have your own version of a pigeon. This is where you're going to find out if like pigeon's something that it's quite new to you. You might feel like, wow, one hip is like way different to the other. Welcome to the world of hips. Easiest way in, all fours, shoot that left knee forward, right leg goes back. If you want to take your pigeon into a bit of more advanced pigeon, you might be take this front leg, make it more parallel with the front of your mat. From here is a choose your own adventure. Stand. I'm going to come into easy pose. Brave people outside coming into child's pose. Slowly come up out of whatever pose you're in. Come into a seated position. Coming back to the breath. Maybe giving your shoulders a bit of a shake, maybe giving your legs a little bit of a wiggle, whatever feels good. I'm pretty sure in the sacred yoga text somewhere it tells you not to put your mat down in an ant's nest. Probably does. It's for the reasons I don't really want to kind of put my face down on the mat too much. Anyway, you people over there, you lay out the ants. This is just where this is the domain of the ants. Let's come into a Baddha soles and feet together. Like, forgot what pose I was going to say there. And what we're going to do from Baddha Konasana, now if Baddha Konasana doesn't work for you at home or in here for whatever reason, first off, the thing may feel like your legs go into like sinking position. They feel really heavy and painful. You can put blocks underneath here. That kind of helps. If the blocks don't work or whatever, you can just come into a cross-legged as well. I don't really mind whichever one it is. Let's come into a forward bend towards the feet in whatever version you're doing. Now, for me, a forward bend is this idea of sending the chest forward, not my head. If I'm sending my nose forward, my spine rolls a lot. If I feel for sending the middle of my chest forward, I can keep my back quite flat. Now, this sort of forward bend is really a bend at the hips, and it might look a bit like this. I'm keeping the back flat, a little bit of a bend, maybe it goes a lot further. Maybe for some people, it goes a lot further still. But this idea of keeping the back as flat as possible and maybe only letting it round as much as feels comfortable. Because for a lot of people, rounding the back doesn't feel brilliant. And also, if you're rounding the back, you're not getting as much hip action in these forward bends. Coming back to the breath again. Take a breath in, engage the core as you exhale, come back up. Inhale in again, lengthen the spine. Exhale, come back into that forward bend, whatever version you were doing, seeing maybe you can go a little bit further because there's been a little bit of a reset. Big breath into the belly, engage the core, exhale, slowly come back up. Bring your heels down onto the floor. We're going to come into Pigeon 90-90. This will be the last one before we start lying down. Pigeon 90-90 is where you rock your knees over to the right, say, to start off with, and your knee and the sole of your foot are together. A lot of things are going to happen here. First, if this feels uncomfortable, you can widen this stance. It makes it a little bit easier. The other thing is that you want to try and get your sit bones down on the floor. Easier said than done. Like, I've been doing this for a long time and my sit bones don't want to go down just yet, but that's okay. They will one day. Inhale, lift the arms up. And then exhale, bring the arms out, palms up in front of you. That shifts your weight balance a little bit, helps to keep the chest upright, and we'll stay here for a couple of breaths. Focus on whichever hip here or position here that feels like that's the bit that feels like it's holding you back. Feel for sending breath into that area, seeing if it softens. Don't push into pain because that's not cool. One more breath in, lift the chest up. Exhale, relax the hips. Come out of this, back into the middle, go the other way. This is where you're going to find out again that your hips are not even. We did not come off like a Terminator production line. Again, if you're at home, you can use blocks underneath the hips. You might be able to use like an ant's nest as well. That kind of works really cool for balancing the hips out. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, arms in front, palms up, lifting the chest up. Take a couple breaths here. Feel for lifting the front of your chest up as much as possible. One hip or the other is probably going to feel a little bit nastier than the other. Focus on sending breath into that area. Let it soften, But don't let that nasty feeling turn into pain. Readjust or move out of it at that point. And bring the arms down. Unhook your feet, rock your knees, rock your whole legs from side to side. Feel for this movement starting and finishing at the hip sockets. And then let's lie down on the floor for some wind down before we kind of get into Shavasana. You might want to orientate yourself if you're outdoors with your head pointing this way, because like this is where the wind's blowing, so you're not going to blow sand in your face. As you're lying down, you're down on the floor. If you're outside, you're already going to notice that the wind is almost like passing over you. It's kind of like a weird feeling. Feel for your body relaxing into the ground a little bit. Your wrists feeling heavy, your elbows feeling heavy, your shoulder blades and shoulders feeling heavy. Back traction. Here's how back traction works. You're going to take your hands and put them on the top of your hips. So the heels of the hands are right at the top of the hips. Fingers pointing towards your knees, and then you're going to press into them so that you're lengthening your spine. Then what I want you to do is I want you to rock your belly button, pull it down towards the floor and lift your belly button up towards the ceiling. You'll notice that you're rocking your hips, rocking your low back here. With that pressure on your legs, with that traction going, feel for getting that movement. It's almost like unlocking some of your spine, especially low down there where sometimes the things can get a little bit sort of congested, things can get a little bit tight. Take a massive breath in, send that breath into the belly again. Use that breath to help you lengthen your spine even more. Keep pressing your hands into your thighs. Exhale, rock your belly button, pulling it down to the floor, lifting it up to the ceiling. Down to the floor, up to the ceiling. If you find a spot where you feel like your back really feels great in that position, maybe it needs a stretch in that position, maybe you're getting into something that feels like you haven't got into that for a while, feel free to stay in that position for a couple of breaths. For me, it's always that idea of pressing my low back down into the floor and pushing as hard as I can into my thighs. That really gets into a spot for me. For you, it might be a different spot. Feel free to stay there for a couple of breaths and then come back into the rocking bit, because that feels cool then. And then this is your time for Shavasana. Anything goes here. Legs up the wall. Don't have a wall outside here. If you're at home, you can. Lying on your front, lying on your back, lying on your side, looking for four-leaf clovers, whatever it is that works for you. You can also sit up in easy pose if that feels kind of better. Whatever works for you. And we're going to be here for just a couple of minutes because it's outdoors. Shavasana. Start to deepen your breathing. Bringing back your awareness to you and where you are. Expanding your awareness again from that point that you brought it in, taking it out and out and out. As far as you feel like you want to take it. Maybe you want to keep it a little bit closer now. Maybe you want to take it as far as possible. It's all up to you. And start to bring some movement into your fingers, your toes, and your legs, and start to wiggle around, and then maybe roll over onto one side. And taking your time, come back up to a seated position and sort of like go, ah. Well, thank you very much, everybody. People who come and brave the elements here, and people who have braved the elements of the room for Zoom, which is sometimes can be quite a challenge. Fantastic to see everybody. Hope you had a good time. See you all again real soon. Take care of yourselves.